Please welcome from the District Attorney's Office, Attorney Teresa Haldegui to Southwestern High School. Thank you.
That is far more of a warmer welcome than I was expecting at 9 a.m. on a Friday. So thank you for that. So this is a presentation about internet safety. We're going to be talking about a number of different topics. As was said, I'm Teresa Haldegui. I work for the York County District Attorney's Office. I work in the Special Crimes Unit, not SVU. Please make sure not to confuse those two. But what I do is I work on cases of child abuse, sexual abuse, prosecution of sex offenders, and a lot of the cases that I deal with end up dealing with social media and the internet. Now, again, since it is 9 a.m. on a Friday, I think all of you guys are probably thinking about, either exams that you have coming up or the weekend. You're probably thinking, great, another internet safety presentation. We're going to be talking today about how you can stay safer online and be a better digital citizen while using the internet. And now you're thinking, okay, this is another internet presentation. We're already talked to death about this. Our parents talk to us about this. The school talks to us about this. I already know all of this stuff. And I'm sure many of you have been taught what you should and shouldn't be doing on the internet since you were very young. You guys have all grown up probably with a smartphone in your hand. How many of you own a smartphone personally? Raise your hand. Yeah. Do you want to know when I got my first cell phone? I was 16 when I got my first cell phone. I'm really not even that old. But it was a flip phone. I was very excited. It had a dragon design on it. I couldn't text with it, but it was really cool because I could call my friends. The first time I got a smartphone was when I was a freshman in college. So it's pretty exciting. How many of you guys have your own tablet, like an iPad or something else along those lines? Raise your hand. How many of you have access to them at home? Raise your hand. How many of you guys have computers at home? Okay. How many of you were under the age of 5 when you first put your hand on one of those devices? Raise your hand. Yeah, okay. So you guys are what are known as digital natives. You've grown up with this technology. It's something that's basically become part of you. It's something that you've become really, really familiar with. And so again, you're like, I know what I need to do on the internet to be safe, to stay safe. I know about stranger danger and all of that. But you shouldn't tune out what we're going to be talking about, and here's why. So around the country, teens just like you are dealing with unwanted sexual requests, facing the consequences of sharing too much information online, being cyberbullied, and experiencing the fallout after sharing intimate images of themselves. Even if you know how to avoid all of these things, there are teens who don't, and those teens may be your friends or classmates. And if you think that it's not a problem, I can tell you right now, every single day, I get a stack of cases on my desk where there are investigations dealing with that exact same thing. So that's the reason that we're here today. We're here to educate you, so that way you can go forward and educate your friends, your family members, maybe a younger sibling, about what you should be doing to make sure that you're staying safe. Good digital citizens protect themselves and others online. So if you pay attention here today, you will be able to walk away and help yourself and your friends deal with some of the difficult situations that come up online. All right, there are going to be a number of different examples I give you from the news just to make sure that you realize that this is not a problem of days gone by. All right, so let's talk a little bit about unwanted sexual requests. In May of 2018, a 21-year-old in Nova Scotia was arrested for sexually soliciting and exploiting a 12-year-old girl in Wisconsin. Let's see, a 17-year-old girl in Australia was helping her grandmother count a lot of money. She decided to post a picture of that money online, and then 2 men broke into her house and stole it. In February of 2018, it kind of sounds like rich kids of Instagram, right? Have you seen those photos of the yachts and all the bling and things that they put on there? My Instagram account is not that interesting. Alright, so in February of 2018, a high school student in North Carolina was expelled after posting a snap on Snapchat of a BB gun and using threatening language, even though he later on said that it was just a joke. And as a prank, a Massachusetts teen shared the password to his teacher's web portal. He expected that people would post funny pictures and jokes, but instead they posted threatening and obscene content. The student was suspended and he lost his college scholarship. So, again, this is the reason why we end up having these conversations. So using the internet safely and responsibly is important because it's such a big part of our lives. All right, so this is where I'm going to do some audience participation. I'm going to ask, and again, raise your hands. How many of you look at stuff on YouTube? All right. Netflix. Can someone shout out a good example of who your favorite streaming personality is? I'm actually kind of out of touch after. Administrators and that sort of thing, I need to explain how prevalent social media is in your life. So going from 2012, which was when I graduated from law school, to today, 2018, the number of students with smartphones has skyrocketed. The same number of students who end up using social media has skyrocketed. Again, of the social media platform of choice, it seems to be Snapchat, then it's Instagram, and then it's Facebook. I don't know if that's necessarily the most popular with you folks, but I run into Snapchat all the dang time, and after that, it's immediately Instagram, very rarely Facebook. If it's Facebook, it's always Facebook Messenger, because you guys don't want to have to pay to send text messages to your friends, and that's totally fine. There are a number of surveys that are conducted every year. There's actually an organization called Piper Jaffe. Basically, they're a marketing survey. They're just trying to figure out how to get their products to you guys, because you are the biggest buyer group. So when they're talking about daily video consumption, where it's coming from, it's Netflix, it's YouTube, and then it's cable TV, Hulu, and other streaming services. And once again, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then Pinterest, which gets very little love. I'm kind of surprised. That end up being the favorite social media platforms of people your age. So, on average, the average US teen spends anywhere between 4 and 8 hours of screen time a day. On social media alone, we're talking like 5 hours accessing social media in totality. And that's between texting with your friends, playing games online, messaging each other, that sort of thing. So you spend a good chunk of your day, and you may be asking yourself, all right, maybe I don't spend that much time, maybe I spend way more time on that. How many of you is the very first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning, go and check your phone? Raise your hand. Yeah. I will not deny the fact that when I wake up in the morning, the very first thing that I do is I open up Instagram and I scroll through to see all the posts that happen overnight. It's something that I do. So, given the importance of social media in your lives, we're going to be talking about all the different problems that can arise from using social media, using the internet. We're going to be talking about risky behaviors. We're going to be talking about sexting. We're going to be talking about cyberbullying, and we're going to be talking about consequences, both legal and otherwise, to all of the above. So, risky behaviors, that is kind of a really broad term. But what we're talking about is we're talking about sending mean or rude messages, that's either text messages, anything else that's online. sharing inappropriate photos, talking about adult subjects, and visiting adult sites. When I'm referring to adult sites, I think all of you are smart enough to know exactly what I'm referring to. I'm going to give you guys the credit for that. So while these behaviors may not sound very risky, each of them can contribute to getting you or a friend into trouble or put yourself into danger. These are all risks that you don't have to take, so you should choose to protect yourself by avoiding them. So very first thing we're going to talk about is inappropriate conduct. So inappropriate conduct would be underage drinking and drug use, hate speech, lewd and offensive gestures, profanity, revealing or suggestive images, and threats. By now, a lot of you have probably seen some really crazy stuff online, and sometimes it may be stuff that you don't actually want to see. One of the things that happened, there's an organization called Common Sense Media. They do a survey of teenagers and what they see online. And Common Sense Media reported from their survey of about approximately 5,000 teens across the country that there had been a major uptick in the amount of hate speech and discrimination against individuals of color, race, gender, sexual orientation, and so forth. And that ended up being really upsetting to a lot of people who were part of that audience. So many teens end up handling this inappropriate content by navigating away from it or reporting it. And one of the things we're going to be talking about today is how you can report that in a way that is going to protect both yourself and those around you. Now, since you guys are older, you're getting ready, you're juniors and seniors, and then we have some folks who are sitting back and listening to the stream. It's not only important to avoid the inappropriate content online, but to refrain from posting it. You should be cautious about posting images and comments that are inappropriate, such as drinking, drug use, and other criminal activities, hate speech, such as slurs against someone's sexuality, race, or religion, lewd or offensive gestures, profanity, revealing or suggestive images, and threats. So why am I talking about this? Again, posting these things may ruin your reputation among your friends and peers, get you in trouble with your parents, school, or the law, and damage future opportunities. So I ended up going to Middlebury College. It's a college up in Vermont. I have a number of friends who sit on the admissions committee, and all they do is review applications. The very first thing that they do is they Google a kid's name. They go and see if you have an open profile on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything else along those lines. They see the things that you post. They look for your Tumblr blogs. Why do they end up doing all of this? Because the person that you present yourself on paper in your college applications or something else along those lines can be very, very different from the person you end up posting online. So I do have this video. It's called Two Kinds of Stupid. You're going to have to forgive the production values. My Adobe skills are not great, so I ended up using a video that was presented by NetSmarts, which is an offshoot of NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I do ask that you watch the video. Again, it's old, it's kind of corny, but it really does make a very good point.
Hey, I'm Eduardo. I'm a junior at NHS. I'm not anything special, pretty normal. I get good grades, and my friends are pretty cool.
What's up, Eddie?
And even my parents aren't too bad.
We love you, Mijo.
I also do a little something. Actually, some recruiters have been checking me out. I'm hoping to get a scholarship for college, so my parents don't have to worry too much about tuition. Last week was a championship week, and it was awesome. Our team owned, and I set a school record in freestyle. Someone from the team decided to throw a party, and it was crazy. Everyone from school was there, including the hot girl from my science class. People were acting so crazy, I had to take them pictures, man. I may have had a little too much fun. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to take pictures, but then I got really dumb and posted them on my page. It's just what everyone does. And I didn't even think to use my privacy settings. So once I posted them, everyone could see them, and anyone could share them. I found that out when I was called to the principal's office and saw some of the pictures from my page sitting on her desk. Coach was there too, and he was really disappointed. It seems like one of my so-called...
Sorry, guys.
Hey,
You can zone out for the first minute.
I'm a junior
Or
at
for the
any
entire
time.
thing, because I think you maybe.
I'm not anything special, pretty normal. I get the grades, and my friends are pretty cool.
What's up, Betty?
And even my parents aren't too bad.
We love you, mijo.
I also do a little swimming. Actually, some recruiters have been checking me out. I'm hoping to get a scholarship to college, so my parents don't have to worry too much about tuition. Last week was a championship meet, and it was awesome. Our team owned, and I set a school record in freestyle. Someone from the team decided to throw a party, and it was crazy. Everyone from school was there, including the hot girl from my science class. People were acting so crazy, I had to take them pictures, man. I may have had a little too much fun. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to take pictures, but then I got really dumb and posted them on my page. It's just what everyone does. And I didn't even think to use my privacy settings. So once I posted them, everyone could see them, and anyone could share it. I found that out when I was called to the principal's office and saw some of the pictures from my page sitting on her desk. Coach was there too. He was really disappointed. It seems like one of my so-called friends had sent them pictures, but which one? It could have been anybody. My ex-girlfriend, who was always mad at me for something. One of my teammates, who seemed kind of jealous. It could have even been some guy I spoke to once in the 9th grade. I guess it doesn't even matter, because I'm the one who put the pictures up there in the first place. Now my principal's saying that I violated the student athlete code of conduct. I signed it at the beginning of the year, and it's 0 tolerance. Meaning, no more chances. I'm off the team, goodbye scholarship. On top of that, I got suspended. I've never seen my parents so mad. Even my teammates won't talk to me. Some of them were in those pictures, and they've been called into the principal's office too. At first, I was really mad at whoever sent the pictures. What business was it of theirs? But then, I realized that as soon as I posted the pictures online, I made it their business. It was really all me. I was 2 kinds of stupid. I was the one who broke the rules. And then I posted the pictures online. It was one mistake after another. So that's my story. I used to be this kid, and now I'm this kid. And this was all it took.
So, again, the video, as corny as it is, as old as it is, one of the things that you should be considering is that if you are engaging in this sort of conduct and then you end up taking photos of it and you post it, share it, etc., even if you end up sending it through DMs or something else along those lines, once that photo is out of your hands, you have literally no control over it anymore. Whoever you end up sending it to and who they decide to send it to, or whether that person has privacy settings, you may have your Facebook page on lockdown. However, someone that you may tag, someone that you may share it with, their privacy settings may not be the same. And that is something that we can control. The only thing that we can control are our own actions and what we do. So, every single time you're about to post something that may be inappropriate, the things that we were talking about previously, you should be asking yourself, who might I hurt? How can this impact my future? Do I like what this says about me? Could this get me into trouble? Would the adults in my life think this is appropriate? One of the things that I was taught right when Facebook became a thing, the Facebook was just opening up right as when I was about to go into college. One of the things my mom had a conversation with me about is, if you would not be comfortable sharing this with your grandmother, you should not be posting it with everybody else. And legitimately, you should be thinking about that every single time. If you would not be willing to share this with your grandmother, and you would be totally fine showing it to your parents, then you shouldn't be posting it. That's the long and the short of it. You need to be thinking about the fact that once it is on the internet, for the most part, it's there forever. And a lot of people will be like, that's not a really big deal. I've deleted it, it goes away. Well, that's one of the things I'm going to talk to you about later, because again, my entire job is to sort of suss that out and conduct digital investigations into social media. I have gone to training at the National Computer Crime Center down in Mobile, Alabama. I ended up working with the FBI throughout law school in their cybercrime division. I was with the U.S. Attorney's Office in their cybercrime division. I have a total of 6 years of experience just doing these kinds of investigations. We find it. It may take us a while, but it's not a matter of if it exists, but when we're going to find it. So, defining what information is inappropriate can be tricky, but there's the good rule of thumb. If it can get you in trouble offline, it can probably get you in trouble online too. In order to limit misunderstandings, again, think about what the adults in my life, my parents, my relatives, teachers, coaches, employers, think this is appropriate. Could this get me into trouble at school or with the law? Is this going to be a violation of the code of conduct that I have at school, especially if you're an athlete? Who could be embarrassed or hurt by this content? Does it give any information about me or another person that should not be shared? What does this content say about the kind of person that I am? Is that how I want to be seen? How could this impact my future opportunities, such as scholarships, college acceptances, and employment? And I can tell you right now, a lot of employers are now asking for individuals' account names, what your social media contact names are, and for certain things, especially government things where you end up needing clearances, they'll ask for your passwords. I mean, whether that's right or wrong, that's something that you may be asked to do because they want to make sure that you're not hiding anything, especially if you're going to go work in the government, if you're going to be working in a law enforcement capacity. So even if it's something that you think it's not going to affect you right now, it's fine, I'll just scrub all of this before I end up going to my employer. Is this something that's been reposted by somebody else? If this is something that you've been tagged in, if you can be affiliated with it in any way, or if someone Googles your name and it shows up in Google Images, it's so much easier to protect yourself if you just never take that content, post that content, and that's going to prevent you from getting in trouble both online and offline. Right. So, TMI. Online information can spread quickly and to a lot of people. It can reach people that you don't want it to, and again, it can be permanent. How many of you have shared information about yourself? Actually, we're going to do another example. How many of you have your birth date posted to your Facebook account? Raise your hand. Okay. Right. How many of you have a phone number? How many of you had said, hey, I'm going on vacation, or have done like a geotag post on Facebook where you're like, hashtag best sunset ever, hashtag no filter, and you have like a very specific place that you've gone on vacation? How many of you have done something like that? Raise your hand. Okay. So going and sharing when you're on vacation, when you're not at your home, when you're probably out with your family, sharing personal information such as your number, all those other things, that can be really problematic for a number of different reasons. Not only is that going to put you at risk, put your family at risk, because the whole concept, there's this joke that people end up putting out their own vacation or something like that, and their homes end up being robbed. We still get a number of those cases every year. If you have an open profile, sometimes people will look based on where an account is centered. So let's say that your hometown is York, Pennsylvania, then you go and post and you're saying, hey, I'm in Bermuda for the holidays, which I'm not going to be in Bermuda for the holidays. Maybe one of you will be. But then, legitimately, people will go and then they'll see that your home is empty and they'll go and try to break into your home and rob things. This is not a joke. This is something that has legitimately happened in York County. We get a handful of these cases every single year. It may be something where if you end up posting a photo of your home, which includes your street address in it, that's also something that puts yourself at risk. The internet just doesn't keep things private just because you want them to. So you should be careful about what you post and when you're using apps, even if they promise anonymity. like Snapchat, Whisper, Yik Yak. I don't know if anyone still uses Yik Yak. That's kind of an old one. But privacy, again, is not guaranteed online. People end up using Kik and a bunch of other things with the promise of anonymity. Again, it's not a matter of whether we'll find it out. It's a matter of how long it's going to take us to find out. All right. So it takes about a minute to think about how much information you're comfortable with sharing online. Are you the kind of person who posts 12 status updates a day or 12 times a year? No matter what type you are, you should be careful about sharing your personal information like your passwords, home address, cell phone number, and that sort of thing. One of the things that I have encountered with folks of your generation is that there's password sharing, especially if in your relationship. So it's a situation you're dating somebody and your significant other is like, hey, let me have your password to your Instagram account. Let me have your password to your Facebook account. Let me have your password to your email. If you don't have anything to hide, then you don't need to keep that from me. That way we can post things together. Isn't that really cute? That can backfire in a number of different ways. Even if it's something like, I want the password to your phone so that way I can look something up. Again, even though that may be a person that you trust right now, say that relationship ends up going south, it can cause a lot of problems later. The New York Times actually did an expose about this specific thing, and there was one teenager in Connecticut where she ended up sharing her school email password with the boy that she was dating at the time. Well, she was in 7th grade, she ended up developing a crush on somebody else. She sent that person an email saying, hey, I like you. Well, her boyfriend at the time found out about that, ended up forwarding that email to everyone else around her, ended up calling her a bunch of names, basically saying she was a cheater and a couple of other words. She was really, really embarrassed, and it hurt her a lot. It hurt her reputation at school, and it hurt how other people end up thinking about her. Whether that's right or wrong, boyfriend ended up getting in trouble, but still, it's never good to put yourself in that situation where you have something that you should keep on lockdown all the time. So, things like passwords, home addresses, your location, your home and cell phone number, your email address, the passwords to those emails, all of that's something that you should not be sharing with anybody else. If I went up to you and asked you what your social security number was, you'd be like, heck no, I'm not going to tell you. You should be thinking the exact same way about your passwords to whatever account it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay, so other things that you should be considering. Have different passwords for each and every account. Use privacy settings and manage your privacy settings on each of these social media accounts. Remember who you friend. If someone sends you a friend request and you don't know them in real life, you should not be accepting that friend request. All right, limit the access to your location. If you end up doing geotags and things like that, saying where you are, you should not be posting all of the information you possibly can. It can be cool to say, hey, I'm on vacation. Don't post specifically where you are or anything else along those lines. You should be looking for the lock symbol or HTTPS on any sort of website that you navigate to. I don't know if any of you actually heard on the news this morning, there was another major breach with the Marriott hotels. Over 500 million people, I think that's the number, their email addresses, their credit card numbers, some of them were their passport information was all made available, so now they're going to have to go and do that. A lot of you are too young to have to be worried about what happened with Expedia and all the other credit card recording companies, but when all of that was breached, social security numbers, all that other information. So again, you want to try to make yourself safe to make sure that you're not going to have any of that information get out as much as possible. You can't really control a number of things when this is a third party or it's a company that's being breached. One of the things you can do to make yourself safe, though, is you have to use a different password for literally every single thing. You can't use that one default password, which is password 1 that you use for the accounts that you really don't care about or the things that you sign up for one time, just so you can make it easier. If you have that one password, for whatever reason, if that company ends up getting hacked, they end up getting access to your email and your password, there's a very good chance that that hacker is going to try to use that password on all other email accounts that are associated, all other accounts that are associated with that email address, and then they can get there. Again, it's something where people think, I'm just one person out of 100,000 who have ended up being hacked, why are they going to choose me? you never want to take that chance. All right. Also, don't be sharing someone else's personal information. Everything that you would want to do unto others, do unto yourself, that sort of thing. And again, don't share passwords. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be talking about is sexting. All right. Okay, so the York County District Attorney's Office does not condone any sexual relationships that you may or may not be in, but we are going to tell you that even though the age of consent in Pennsylvania is 16, all of the child porn stuff, that's if you're under the age of 18. People forget that. And that's something we're going to be talking about here. So sexting is one way that teens end up sharing inappropriate information. You may be in a dedicated relationship with your significant other. You may have been dating them for like 4 years. You may have plans to stay in a relationship after you end up graduating from high school. And you may think that it's appropriate to share that information. That, I'm not making any judgments about that. That's not between me, that's between you, your significant other, and your parents and what you think is appropriate. I'm not here to make any judgments. I'm here to talk about the potential legal consequences and fallout that could happen for the rest of your life. So, although there's some research that suggests that only 2.5 of teens are sexting, there are tons and tons of stories about it all over the news. And again, from the giant stack of files that I have on my desk every single day, it happens on a fairly regular basis. All right, so you may even know people who have been asked to do it. Teens who end up getting involved with sexting are usually joking around with friends. They end up getting a photo, they're like, wow, they end up passing it to their friends. You're trying to flirt with someone, impress a crush. Sometimes you'll send an unsolicited photo of certain parts of your body to someone you may have a crush on. These are the situations that we're talking about. So, I have another video for you. Again, it's fairly short. I would ask that you pay attention. The other thing is that you need to remember this video was made back in 2012. I don't know if any of you had a sidekick or even know what a sidekick is, but don't make fun of the phones and technology. It still applies here. Like I said, it's old. It's old. in the basement in Ohio who just got your nude photograph. No one thinks about that at the very end of the line. But I can tell you right now, that's one of the biggest parts of my job. So a revealing image may get lost or misplaced, may be passed around without your permission, may be used to bully you, may be used to blackmail you, and can get you in trouble. So again, in that video, the girl thinks that only her boyfriend is going to see that image, but she soon learns that when she shared it, it was completely out of her control. Once she gave it to him, she had no control whatsoever about what happened with it afterwards. And again, so people have done things using privacy application, things like that, using Snapchat. You can still take screenshots of disappearing images. The screenshots don't go away. So one study estimated that 88% of self-made sexual or suggestive images that teens post online are reposted to adult websites. And that's actually one of the parts of my job that's really, really unfortunate. So when we deal with a scenario in which someone has taken a nude or suggestive image of themselves, and it fits the criteria for child sexual abuse material, also known as CSAM or child pornography, they notify, law enforcement then proceeds to notify NCMEC's Child Victim Identification Program. So that image, along with your identifying information, will become part of a massive database that is utilized by law enforcement and various internet service providers all over the world. Why? Why on earth would they do that? Well, the reason being is that when your image ends up being sent to somebody else, when they find it on that guy's computer in his basement in Ohio, what they do is they reach out to you. They say, hey, we end up identifying your naked photograph on this guy's computer. Here are your rights as a victim. Here's what you need to know if you want to sue. So something that you can do at the age of 15 can come back to haunt you when you're 25, 35, 45. This is one of the worst parts of my job. When I have to go and tell somebody that an image that they took when they were a teenager has now been found on a completely random person's computer and what their rights are for going and suing that person, what their victim's rights are. That's awful. You should never put yourself in that position where that image is going to be completely out of your hands and it can be disseminated over and over again. So, stay in control of the situation. Don't take images of yourself that you wouldn't want everyone to see. Don't forward someone else's image. Even if you get it, even if you think it's funny, you think it's a joke, even if it's someone that you don't like, and you're like, ha, this person had it coming to them, they're so stuck up. Don't do that. Because again, you're perpetuating the cycle where you ultimately end up on that guy's computer in the basement in Ohio. So don't ask or pressure anybody to share an image. And talk to an adult. Alright, so what happens if you end up finding yourself in this situation? You need to talk to an adult. It's not something that you should try to be managing on your own, because adults can at least start helping you. So what you can do is you can file a complaint. You can file a complaint with the website or application that's been posted on there. So for example, if it's been posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, something else along those lines, all of those websites have reporting mechanisms saying that there's an inappropriate image of yourself or an image that's being used without your permission, please take it down. Now, for some of the more sketchier websites, that may not always work, and that's when you should definitely be getting law enforcement involved. If you end up finding yourself in this situation, you should be talking to your parents, you should be talking to a teacher, and you should be talking to law enforcement. So, when you're talking to trustworthy websites and apps, they work hard to keep sexual images of minors and will remove them if they're notified. You should be including your age in the report and make it clear that the picture was posted without your consent. Don't forget that each website has their own reporting process, so you have to file a complaint with each and every one that there's a picture or video on. If the image is on a website that looks untrustworthy or doesn't have a way to report, that's when you should definitely get law enforcement involved. So, we're going to start talking about the legal consequences specifically in Pennsylvania and what can happen there. So, I'm going to run through a couple of scenarios. Again, these are scenarios that I see literally every single day at my job. So if you think that they're kind of far-fetched or out there, I can assure you that they're not. Okay, so you were dating someone who ended up sending you nudes. They dump you and you decide to get back at them by sending their nudes to your friends. This is a really common scenario. So then you end up having what's known as unlawful dissemination of an intimate image, or also known as revenge porn. That is a misdemeanor 1, misdemeanor 2. The misdemeanor 1 is up to 5 years of incarceration in jail if you're an adult. Misdemeanor 2 is up to 2 years of incarceration in jail. Then there's harassment, which is basically a summary, and you can get probation for it. You receive a nude of another classmate. That classmate is under the age of 18. You proceed to forward that nude to friends for whatever reason. Oh man, this is a really good looking person. This is really, really funny. Or I don't like this person, I'm just going to keep on forwarding this because they have it coming to them. So on your phone, you now have child pornography. If they are under the age of 18, regardless of the fact that consent is 16 in the state of Pennsylvania, if you have an image of a child in a state of undress, a individual who is showing any part of their genitalia, if they are engaged in a sexual act, or if they are mimicking a sexual act, that falls under the definition of child pornography, and that's a felony. So we're not talking about we're not talking about county time anymore, we're talking about state prison time. And we're talking about the possibility of up to 7 years of state prison time. And that depends on the number of images that you have on your phone. Then there's a whole separate charge because you decided to forward it on to your friends. That's dissemination of child pornography. That's another felony charge that you run into. And then there's a transmission of sexually explicit images by minors. So if you are under the age of 18, it ends up being a misdemeanor offense. That doesn't mean you still can't get in trouble. All right, so you ask the person that you're dating to send you a nude. They send you a nude. The person you're dating is 16. Once again, even though you may be in a consensual sexual relationship by legal standards, again, we don't make any comment on that in terms of what you want to do. That's between you and your parents. That is sexual abuse of children pornography. Basically, your production of child pornography. You solicit that person, you've enticed that person to go and engage in taking a photograph of themselves. You're looking at another felony. You send an unsolicited nude photograph of yourself to someone you like. Gentlemen, I'm talking to you. You are 18. They are under the age of 18. Dissemination of explicit materials to minors. Again, you're looking at state prison time. You're also looking at corruption of minors, which is a misdemeanor 1 offense. It is up to 5 years in jail. And those are 2 separate charges that generally run together. So a number of you are under the age of 18, and there have been some misconceptions in terms of adult court versus juvenile court, in terms of the consequences that can occur as a result of it. If you're a juvenile and you end up getting charged, for the most part, you're not going to be looking at jail time. However, a juvenile consequence can be just as bad as an adult consequence in terms of how it can follow you around for the rest of your life. So, in juvenile court, you're not found guilty, not guilty. It's not considered to be a criminal conviction. However, in a lot of different areas of your life, it will be treated as a criminal conviction. So, for employment opportunities, you know, if any of you have ever filled out a job application, they ask you about prior criminal convictions. Juvenile delinquencies don't necessarily count. However, that doesn't prevent employment opportunities, those employers from looking up those juvenile convictions, the juvenile delinquencies. They're still a matter of public record. They can look it up. If you want to go work for a government organization, that's something that's pretty much going to bar you from working for that government organization. If it's a situation where you need a license, which there are a lot of trades in Pennsylvania where you need a license in order to practice any sort of trade, that juvenile delinquency can prevent you from getting your license. Depending on what the delinquency adjudication is for, that will prevent you from working for certain populations. If it's anything that involves child pornography or something else along those lines, you're not going to be able to work with kids. And also certain convictions will prevent you from working with the elderly as well. It can also affect your ability to have access to public housing, not only your public housing, but also your family's access to public housing if you are still residing with them. It can prevent you from getting a position with the military. It can prevent you from getting a license to carry a firearm. These are just the juvenile delinquency adjudications, not even a criminal conviction. The other thing is that people also think, okay, well, once I hit the age of 18, that just goes away. That's not the case. Juvenile delinquency adjudications don't go away automatically. They're not expunged automatically. That's something that you have to do, and after you've only met a certain number of requirements. So, when you're thinking about this, when you're engaging in this sort of activity, and you're thinking, I'm under the age of 18, I'm a kid, it's not going to be a problem for me later on, you're wrong. And again, if you're over the age of 18, chances are more likely than not, you're going to be charged as an adult, and you're going to be looking at those felonies. You're going to be looking at the county incarceration, or you're going to be looking at state incarceration. So, if you're on the receiving end of this, remember that you always have the right to say no to inappropriate requests. So let's say, let's go from what you're doing online to who you're talking to. It's important to understand that some people don't have the best intentions and may make inappropriate requests. If the request is unwanted or made by an adult, that's called sexual solicitation. So, for example, this is a situation when you're talking to someone online and you had just met them and they ask you to pull up your shirt. They ask you to meet offline. They ask you for specific personal information like we were detailing before. What school you go to, where you work, what your schedule is for those things. Hey, do you want to meet up offline? So the way you should be responding to all of this, block or unfriend them. You should be reporting the behavior. You should especially be reporting the behavior if it's something that's happening on Facebook Messenger or something else along those lines, so that way they can either kick that person off the site or they can start working with law enforcement. The other thing is that it is really, really important to be talking to law enforcement if there's an adult who's specifically trying to sexually solicit you. You're not the one who's going to get in trouble in that scenario. That person is. The other thing is, from our perspective, it is really important for you to block or unfriend that person. That doesn't prevent them from creating another account and trying to contact you further. But before you block or unfriend that person, please, 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 take a screenshot of those messages. Take a screenshot that includes the date and time when those messages were sent. Also record that person's username, whatever their screen name is, something else along those lines. That is really useful for us when we end up conducting our investigations. All right, sometimes sexual solicitations can develop into a more dangerous relationship with adults. In these cases, this is when adults try to gain your trust by offering affection and attention. They may, again, ask to meet up with you offline. So this has been commonly referred to as grooming. So someone who is grooming you may try to flatter you, may try to send you gifts, try to discuss various different adult subjects, even if they know that you are underage. They may ask you to keep secrets, say, hey, this is a relationship that's just going to stay between the two of us. They may try to tell you that if your friends or family express your concern about you, they don't actually care about you. It's actually the person who's soliciting you that cares about you. No one else matters except the other person on the end of the line and your relationship together. They may ask you to share revealing images. And once you share that first image, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to say something else along the lines of, okay, well, you sent this one photo of me. I want you to send another photo of me by this date and by this time. And if you don't, I'm going to tell your teachers. I'm going to tell your school. I'm going to tell your parents. I'm going to show it to all your friends. I'm going to post it online publicly and tag you in it. And so people will keep on sending the images. And what I want to tell you right now is that if you end up in that scenario, again, unfortunately I run into a number of individuals in York County who I help with their legal cases. I need to remind you that it's not your fault. Very frequently when individuals end up getting in these situations, they're told, oh, well, you're going to be charged with production of child pornography. If you are in one of these situations where someone is blackmailing you and forcing you to send those photos, I can tell you right now the district attorney's office is not going to charge you with child pornography. We're going to treat you like the victim that you are. We're going to do everything that we can to put that person on the path of justice. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be representing you. We're not going to immediately victim blame. So, if you've been threatened to do this, if you feel guilty and think that people are going to blame you, that your parents are going to blame you, that law enforcement is going to blame you, and if you think that no one's going to believe you, all I can say is it is infinitely better to reach out and talk to a trusted adult, especially the law enforcement, than it is to suffer alone. It is never your fault in this situation, and you should not be ashamed of where you are. So what can you do to avoid this scenario whatsoever? Don't engage them. One of the sort of weird side effects that we've now seen is that people who would solicit children online, trying to specifically get photographs and things like that, once they get shut down once, they stop. The reason being is they just go on and move on to the next person because there's so many kids online nowadays. So you give them the hard no, they're going to leave you alone. They're going to keep on moving on. Again, talk about blocking them, but make sure that you try to take a screenshot of any sort of identifying information of them so that way you can report it to law enforcement or that website. Don't meet them offline. That's the long and short of it. And again, tell an adult that you trust, whether that be a teacher, whether that be a counselor, parent, another family member, or if you just go straight to law enforcement. It's really important that you tell someone that you trust. You should also be reporting anybody who sends you adult images, specifically any pornography, any images of themselves, anything else along those lines. Report anybody who asks you to send images of yourself, who tries to talk to you, again, about adult subjects. Generally that's going to involve sex, alcohol, drugs, something else along those lines, or if they ask to meet you offline. So cybertipline.org is where you can submit this anonymously if you would choose to do so. There's also 1-800-THE-LOST. That is the NCMEC hotline. What I would also encourage you to do is, again, contact your school, tell your parents, contact law enforcement. The last thing we're going to talk about is cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is basically anytime you're receiving bullying, not necessarily in person, but through any sort of electronic device. So this can include creating a hate group about someone, the I Hate Teresa Howdigy group, and you end up all posting to Facebook or whatever that is. Posting mean comments online, photoshopping someone's photo to embarrass them, recording and posting fight videos, spreading rumors and gossip through text messages or, again, through social media, stealing someone's identity and creating a fake profile. So I was very fortunate in that I graduated from high school before a lot of this got started. Like I said, my senior year was when I first got my Facebook account, when Facebook was starting to become a big thing. I can say I don't necessarily know what it's like to live through this firsthand, but I have worked with a number of individuals under the age of 18 and even adults who've experienced cyberbullying. And you need to remember the consequences of this, and even if you're participating in it, or even if you're just a bystander, you're watching it all happen, but you don't want to get engaged, you don't really want to report it to anybody, you need to remember that there are consequences. So when I graduated from law school, the year 2012, there was a young woman by the name of Amanda Todd. Amanda Todd committed suicide on October 10th of 2012. Shortly before she committed suicide, she posted a now very well-known viral video in which she decided to present her entire story of how she was sexually exploited online and how she was bullied both in and out of school. She told her entire story. She did it through presenting a series of placards with her story, and shortly after this, she committed suicide by hanging herself. And it was finally at that point where the adults were notified of what you folks were actually experiencing. There was a lot of attention that was put on it. And tragically, bullying continues to drive students to take their own lives. It's my understanding that you did end up losing a student earlier this year as a result of bullying actions. So, you need to do two things to be basically a good person in these scenarios. One, you need to be looking out for your friends and other classmates figuring out what's going on, figuring out if they are experiencing cyberbullying, if you know of something, if you've seen postings online, if you've heard whisperings or things like that. The whole concept of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me, that only helps for so long until it really starts to hurt you emotionally. So, so think about how you would feel if you were on the receiving end of this, and you may have been on the receiving end of this. Think about how that ends up impacting your self-esteem, and how that may end up making you feel isolated, and how that may prevent you from wanting to go to school or even going online and participating in things. So, you need to also be aware of the legal consequences for this. So there's actually a very specific charge for cyberbullying. It's called cyber harassment of a child. And if there's a severe enough pattern of conduct, you can be charged with stalking. So this is where I end up going back and I talk about, well, people say I can't really do anything or find anything because I did it through Snapchat, I did it through an anonymous app, I did it through something else along those lines. However, like I said, it is not a matter of if we end up finding it, it's a matter of when. So in terms of our search warrant powers and our investigative powers, we're able to contact these companies and they are legally required to comply with finding this information. We may end up having to do it through breadcrumbs. Sometimes the investigations last a while, but we will ultimately identify the person who did it. So for example, if you want to consider the school threat situation that happened in Central earlier on this year, in which there was a snap of a snap of a snap of a snap. Yeah, that took a while, but we found that person. Don't think that just because you're being anonymous online means that you're actually anonymous online. Okay. So what can you be doing instead to prevent these, a friend or yourself from being cyberbullied? So don't respond, block the bully, set up new accounts, and again, some people are like, that's not enough, it ends up being pervasive, it keeps continuing. Sometimes for an individual in this situation, not responding, blocking them, and setting up the new accounts is enough. But sometimes it's not. And at that point, that's when you need to start making reports to the various different social media providers, and that's when you really need to start talking to an adult, especially if it ends up being in school. You need to be notifying your teachers, your counselors, and your principals. They can definitely help you. And if it gets extreme enough, talk to your parents and talk to law enforcement. Okay. Again, another thing that you can do, even if you're not on the receiving end of being bullied or cyberbullied, you can document what you see. You can take screenshots. You can be saving videos. You can encourage others not to participate in bullying behavior. And for the love of all that is good, don't participate just to fit in because you're going to think that you're going to be the next target if you don't do that. You end up perpetuating the problem. You need to stand up for the victim and you need to report it. Okay. So, don't feed the cyberbullies. So this is something that I actually spend a great deal of time educating adults just as much as students about, in terms of you should be keeping your critical comments to yourself. If you are posting something online that you wouldn't say to that person's face, you shouldn't be posting it at all. And I think there are a number of adults who end up posting comments to Facebook who could probably learn about that. And I've actually had conversations with defendants to that effect. You should not be forwarding rumors or embarrassing photos of individuals. You should not be commenting on or making insulting or harassing posts. Basically, you need to be a good person. Just because you're posting online, just because you're not doing it immediately to that person's face, doesn't mean that it ends up having consequences. And again, this goes for every single citizen of York County, regardless of what your age is. So, instead, we should be creating a positive online environment. So you should be being careful about what you share. Don't cyberbully, don't encourage it. Don't be requesting inappropriate content, and instead report whenever you see any of these happening. So, the other thing I really want to encourage you is that there is help out there. A lot of what I've been talking about has been pretty severe. There's been lots of doom and gloom. However, I do want to remind you that the York County District Attorney's Office, the Hanover Police, your local police departments, your teachers, your counselors, everyone else, we're here to help. If you are experiencing something, you should not feel alone. You should not feel that we are not going to do anything, we're not going to listen to you, or we're going to blame you. Our goal, my entire job, is to help kids. And I want to make sure that you guys feel, or if you take literally nothing away from this, aside from, oh my God, I just wasted an hour of my life on a Friday, but hey, at least I got out of class to go to an assembly. Remember that if you ever need help, or if you have a friend that needs help, you can come to us and we're going to listen. We do take it seriously. So a lot of this presentation was created with resources as a result of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There is a website, again, kind of corny and kind of outdated, but it's called nsteens.org. It does have a lot of information on there, including very specific information about various different resources on websites, both law enforcement and private, that can help you out if you end up finding yourself in one of these situations. It also does provide you with a series of materials if you need to talk to somebody about what you're experiencing or what a friend is experiencing. So if it's something that you're curious about, nsteens.org is something you can do. Also, if you ever want any additional information, you can approach me after this talk. You can approach a teacher and we'll try to get out to you, okay? So with that, we actually have 4 minutes to spare. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask. Otherwise, I think we're good.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Dr. Burkhardt, I'm your superintendent, and I sat in the back and I listened and I thought, am I going to say something? Because the message that you just received was phenomenal in terms of its content and its relevance. But then I sat back there and I thought, I have a 16-year-old son who's a sophomore, and I have a 18-year-old daughter who's a freshman. And so the lens of the father came out. And so we always tell you that we care about you, and we do. And the message that we want you to leave with is this is serious. And there was a lot of uncomfortable giggles, which I understand, because when I sat in high school, although social media did not exist, and yes, we still used a rotary phone, there were still issues that we faced as kids that are very similar, but not that similar to what you have happening today. So the point is, there are many teachers in this room, for those of you in the classroom, teachers in front of you as they're getting ready to transition back to class. We care. We will listen. This is serious stuff. We've all heard of cases or maybe experienced it on our own. But as a parent and a school administrator, and first and foremost a teacher, I'm going to tell you, tell your story to an adult. We will listen. I promise you we will help you. And we will do everything in our power to protect you. And today is just one example of that. So as you go through the rest of the day today, and you think about the things that you've learned and what you've listened about, never forget that we care and that we want to help. Mr. Downs, do you have anything you want to say to them?
I just want to also thank Attorney Haldeggi, okay, for being here today. And I agree with Dr. Burkhardt's comments. This is an important topic. And I appreciate if you leave here today and you process this over the weekend and you think about it. And like Dr. Burkhardt said, I know some of these topics are kind of giggly and funny at times, but really it is a serious topic. So as you process this over the weekend, you think about this. If you know of anybody or you yourself are experiencing this, please come in and talk to one of us, talk to a teacher, talk to an administrator, talk to someone here in the building, a counselor, for assistance, because that's why we're here. You're dismissed to period 4. Thank you.